Today, I'm excited to be talking to Canadian filmmaker Mark Bone. He's done a lot of great commercial projects in the past for Nike, Mercedes-Benz, Budweiser, but this time around he did something a little bit different. We're going to be talking to him about his project Rescate that's blowing up on Vimeo, how he got the support of Filmsupply to make the film, and we'll look at his heroes in filmmaking. Let's jump right into it. So you usually worked, like before I've seen on your Vimeo feed, you worked with Nike and Mercedes-Benz and Budweiser, but with this one you went a different route.
Yeah, I kind of got to do, I felt like, I might be answering some of your questions ahead of time, but for me it was interesting. I felt like I finally got to do what I wanted to do on this project, like showed people what I am capable of, because I kind of have always been doing not always, but the past few years I've gone into the commercial world, and you hope to shoot these amazing, beautiful commercials, but you end up having to work on, and at least in Canada, some really low budget, kind of uninspiring work for at the level I was at. So I kind of was a bit frustrated with it, and I had some time off at the beginning of last year. I just signed to a new agency, and so yeah, I just went and shot Rescate, and I'm so glad I did, because it kind of felt like what I've always been doing on my own, and there was no one to force me to have to sell a product, or I could just kind of do what I needed to do, and I'm very passionate about humanitarian work as well. So it was such a pleasure to get to couple it with that idea.
Yeah. You didn't have to water down the concept at all. There was no client that was looking over your shoulder the whole time, changing the script or anything. You call little shots on this one. Yeah,
exactly.
So how did the relationship with Filmsupply come about?
Filmsupply was I've always been one of their contributors. I'm one of when they launched the website, I was one of their contributors. So I mentioned the film to them, and I sent my pitch deck to them, and they loved the idea. They thought it was really, really cool, and they said, yeah, we would definitely consider it as one of our Filmsupply Presents films.
Nice.
They're send us a rough cut. So as soon as I had a rough cut, I sent it to them, and they were like, yeah, we want it. We love this.
Awesome.
So that's how it kind of came about. I've just had a pre-existing relationship with them, but it took me sending them my pitch deck and then a rough cut, and then they decided to go with it.
Any chance we can see some of that pitch deck?
Yeah, no, I saw your thing. I'll send you the pitch deck, and you're more than welcome to use it however you want.
Just like a few pages or something, just so we can see how that looks.
Totally.
So you originally went to the Dominican Republic for a different reason.
Well, the original thing was one of my best friends, who is a humanitarian who lived in the Dominican, was flying back from Haiti, from delivering aid supplies there. And his plane crashed in a storm, and unfortunately he passed away. But when I heard that his plane crashed, I rushed down there like a day or two later, as quick as I could get on an airplane. And when I went to where they think the crash site was, I saw this group of guys who were the only people working, and they were in white T-shirts. They all had matching shirts and matching hats, and they were in the ocean, and they were on an old jet ski, and they were trying to look for wreckage. And I asked my friend, who was a nurse down there, I said, who are these people? And she said, oh, this is Rescate Ambar. They're all volunteers. They're actually usually work during the day, but they're here helping out. And they did that for 2 weeks. And then at night, they go and they work as paramedics on the roads there. And Dominican is one of the most dangerous countries to drive in the world. Some years it's ranked number 1. It's usually number 2. So their work inspired me, and I just kind of was in that moment, was like, I have to make a movie about these guys. Like, it's just too interesting.
So despite your personal grief, in that moment, your documentary filmmaker spidey sense just goes off.
Yeah, it was, there was kind of 2 days there where I was kind of in shock about the whole thing, and it was a bit traumatic. But there was that moment when I saw one of them standing there and someone explained to me who they were. Yeah, exactly. Just that. There's that documentary sense, and I've had that a few times throughout my life where I was like, "Oh, I have to make a movie about this." Like, yeah, this idea has to be made, and you almost can't stop yourself from wanting to make the film. I just had that for actually a client, and I'm really excited to release the piece. I can't say much about it right now, but when they told me the story that had happened, and they weren't even thinking about a certain angle, but it was about a guy who had a health condition, all this stuff. I was just like, yeah, I have to do this. So yeah, it's still, you can't stop it. It's innate. When you hear about a good story, especially a real life one, you want to just tell it.
That's so awesome, man.
Yeah.
So then you got your camera with you? You just start filming from that moment on?
Pretty much. I went back to Canada. I wrote the pitch package. I spent some time just creating an outline so that I didn't waste time down there. And
I think it shows that there's some consideration of the structure of the piece beforehand.
Thank you.
Like you thought through it. Maybe that comes from your commercial filmmaking side.
I would say it does, because commercial filmmaking, you have to script and show your process and what you're going to do, sometimes almost to the detriment of the project. You have to show every single thing you're going to do. So that just comes naturally for me. And my background or my instincts are documentary. So I brought that into that world. And it actually, to be honest, it made shooting the film very easy, because I went to a cafe. I put on a playlist of inspiring music that I like. I'd already gone down and I'd done a research. I had met with them. I'd gone out one night with them. I had experienced their world, so I had a taste of it. I had filmed just for one day with them when I was down there for another reason. And I just wrote down the outline of how I wanted to tell the story, and then I wrote and described 25 scenes. It ended up being 25 scenes of what I wanted to shoot. And sometimes they weren't even necessarily part of the story. I was just like, I know this is really amazing. I need to capture this. And so I wrote those scenes down. And then I went down and filmed it in the Dominican, and I gave myself 2 weeks to film. And it was just every day I would just look at the scenes I had to shoot. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do these 3 scenes. And, you plan ahead. You're like, okay, this day is going to be rainy, or this day we have to go to the mountain that's far away. And what's great is you end up getting those scenes, but then you get all these other scenes because you're there, you're present, your creative juices start flowing, and it's just, there's the magic that starts happening. And it was really nice because it never felt like I was aimless. It felt like every day I had a reason and I knew what I was filming, and it also saved me time, because there was days where I knew I didn't need any footage because I got certain scenes and someone wasn't available, and I knew I needed to get a certain shot with them. But then honestly, the most important thing I do when I'm shooting documentaries, I review the footage every night, and I start editing just crash edits. I just throw it all on a timeline, and I just start moving it around and getting a feel and seeing what the footage is telling me. And so yeah, it was just such a great experience, because with it being a personal project, I had a lot of time to just sit with the footage and think about the footage and think about the film, and ultimately live with the team, which I think created a very intimate experience with them.
There's that moment in the film where Reynaldo is talking about his uncle that passed away because they didn't have freaking money for the medical equipment.
Yeah.
That came out of nowhere, I think I read somewhere in your other interview.
Yeah, so that scene, that's again one of those scenes where, I could never have come up with that scene, but I had always known, one of the scenes I'd written out is I wanted Ronaldo to be in a graveyard at one point. And it was just, even if it was just for a flash scene, I thought it was to have this image. I love juxtaposition. It's a huge part of my work. And to have a paramedic who preserves life in the graveyard that preserves death, it might have been too cliche, but I was like, I want to try it. I want to just see what that looks like. And we were coming down the mountain, and I saw this huge graveyard, and it was sunsetting, and I said, Ronaldo, do you mind if we go there? And we almost didn't go into the graveyard. We were waiting around for someone who had a lock to go in. I was like, oh, no, Ronaldo, don't worry. But I felt like I was inconveniencing him. He's like, no, we should go in. So we went in, and he started walking around, and it was like he was looking for something, and I didn't understand, but I just followed him. And then he came around the corner, and he started saying in Spanish, like, this is my uncle's gravesite. This is my uncle. I knew the word tío, like, which means uncle. So,
but you don't speak Spanish.
I don't speak Spanish. I can understand a little bit of it now.
How can you edit the story if you don't speak Spanish? Did you get it translated?
I got
the
it.
Whole thing?
I got it translated.
Okay.
So, that's don't speak. I was able to communicate enough about directions and highways with them. Like, I started understanding like carretera and like derecha and all this stuff that means like go on the highway, take a right. But when people start talking to me about other things, like, I don't know, like the weather and food, I'm like, I have no idea. But if you want to talk to me about car accidents and directions, then
Your
in Spanish,
vocabulary is extensive in
yeah,
those areas.
then I feel pretty confident about that.
Very
But
nice.
yeah, again, I was saying back at the graveyard. So then that scene happened, and there was a street preacher in the background who was screaming. So I had to get the camera right up in front of Ronaldo's face since I'd already taken his lav mic off from the day. Yeah, it was an incredible moment that I don't think I could have ever manufactured.
Like one of the strongest moments in the movie.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it really. Yeah, no, Ronaldo was. It was the first time I saw him cry, and it was kind of a really. It was earlier on in the filming too.
Yeah.
I think it was a really beautiful moment that we got to share together because it kind of turned the whole tone of our filming. He was much more vulnerable with me the rest of the filming experience.
So the whole movie is just great and really, I think it just moves people to action. I saw even on the Vimeo comments, some people were saying like, "Oh, I just donated because of this movie." It's really a testament to the power that a filmmaker has to tell stories that really make a difference.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think all filmmakers realize that creating magic from nothing like that, it's like a superpower, right?
Yeah, that's one way. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. It's. I think we get to find the gold that's hidden, and there's incredible stories happening all around us, and you kind of just have to wade into the forest a bit to find them. But if you follow your instincts, or if you have a hunch, I think there's 10,000 more stories, and there's a million more Ronaldos out there, and that's what really excites me, to get the chance to tell those stories.
I love that quote from you that says, "My background is really based in emotion." You're kind of like, it's not about gear, it's not about the freaking lens on my camera. It's about emotional impact.
It's true. I find myself really uninterested in camera gear blogs, and I've tried to do tutorials on cameras myself. Like, I understand my camera, and yeah, you have to in order to tell a good story. But it really does come down to storytelling. It really does. Or else you're just making travel videos. Actually, don't say that. Sorry, I have too many friends who make travel videos. That'll be offensive. But I don't know. You need to tell a story, or else you're just creating good, like, nice looking content and that won't last. That won't have lasting impact.
So many times I come across gorgeous videos on Vimeo, and I'm like, "Oh, please let there be a story in here." And then it's just travel clips, no structure. And I'm like, "Oh, this is such a waste. They could have hit it out of the park with these beautiful images." But
yeah.
That being said, you don't care about camera gear, but it's beautifully shot. So what did you shoot it on?
Yeah. No, I shot it on. I used the main camera, was a Sony FS7.
Okay.
With the Metabone speed booster, which was really helpful because we shot a lot of the film at night. I don't know what else I would really need from a camera besides a more latitude.
You're talking about the dynamic range.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the dynamic range on it is already pretty good, but I could deal with some more. Sometimes it would be nice to have some more on it.
I think that would be the case for like any camera ever.
Yeah, right. But I considered shooting it, like most of my commercials I shoot on Alexa, and I considered that for this film. But I have an FS7 sitting in my office, and it's also such an easy camera to manage by yourself. You just plug batteries into the walls, and also too, I was going out to really dangerous situations at night. There's high crime rates in Dominican.
In the Dominican Republic, yeah.
Yeah, there's, I'm going to car accidents with tons of people who are intoxicated. The paramedics had a job to do, so they couldn't always look out for me, although they did an incredible job doing that. But I thought, I can pack the FS7 down so small when I strip all the gear off that all I needed is my FS7. I actually did most of the focus pulling right off the barrel, but as long as I had my small HD 502, with all my LUTs that I build. And I built LUTs specifically for the Dominican on this project, like Caribbean. Like I created one that I used at night, and then I had one that I used during the day, and then I had one for sunset. And I tweaked them for the colors and tones I wanted to use. So it was very nice because when I handed it over to the post-production team or the color artist, I gave him all those LUTs, and he knew what I was looking at on set. So it was really easy to communicate and build a look from there. And he did an incredible job. It was actually the guy who color corrected it. He also worked on Mad Max. He helped color correct that film. So it was it was really awesome collaborating with him, since his name's Clinton Humuth, and he's just amazing at what he does. So it was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was the main camera. There was other cameras that we used, but the FS7 is so great because it has the slow motion button right there. You don't have to dig through any menus, and it keeps your shutter angle at the same thing that it was, no matter what the speed,
Oh, nice.
So when I'm filming out there, I can quickly jump over to super slow motion, and I can be shooting 180 frames, at the flick of a button, which is really handy for documentary. There's no, I know more and more cameras are doing this, but there's no digging through menus, which is great.
If you had to go back and start from scratch, well, how would you start building a career to create the cool things that you've done?
Yeah, so I thought that was a very interesting question. I wrote down some answers here. I think, to be honest, if I were to go back and do it all over again, I would have started shooting my own personal projects much earlier. I shot some really small ones, but they were always very safe. They were like, I would do it for a day or two here, or I would do it for a client, or I shot, a short film for my church called Join the Table, and I was really proud of that. It looked great, and we had actors and everything. But I think I would have just started shooting my own stuff years ago, and I was shooting for clients and creating work that I thought was beautiful, but never my own complete films. And I think I was just always hoping people would know that I could do films, but no one's going to hire you, or no one's going to hire you to shoot a feature film or shoot a documentary unless you've already shot a feature film or shot a documentary. So I think if I could go back and do it again, I think I would just start shooting my own stuff earlier, and I feel like I would be in the same place, or I would hope a better place.
On the Vimeo link, like, you can see the kind of response that you're getting from this compared to what you've gotten in the past, right? This is one is like blows all of the crazy work for Nike and Mercedes-Benz and all that away in response.
Yeah, exactly.
From a 2-week job.
Yeah, that's just it, right? I'm very grateful for all the work that I had done before this, because it was all such huge training, like to get to work for big clients like Nike and Mercedes. It gave me huge experience, and also I used to work on feature films, and I was always like in the camera department, and then I was in the editing department, and I learned so much along the way that it felt. What was nice about this is when I finally executed on my own project, it was like there wasn't much of a learning curve. It was like, although I learned a lot through it, it was just, I felt like I could put something out there I was very proud of. And I'm still very grateful. And I think you can never, you should never discount any moment on set, because it's always a chance to learn. And what's great about filmmaking is you're always getting paid to learn. If you're working on set, even if it's a really crappy project for a really crappy client, it's like you get to choose what to do, and if you don't choose to do something new, it's kind of your own fault, And so, although clients shoot stuff down, you might as well try it. But
Great
I would have
point.
just and that would be my. I know I'm very long-winded, but if I would tell any young filmmaker, how to get their foothold in the industry, I would say, like, start shooting. If you want to become a director or whatever, just start directing. Like, go direct your own piece. Because even if it's really bad, you show it to someone, it shows that you were competent enough to write a script, shoot a film, edit it, and complete it, which is, I would rather hire you at that point than the guy who has all the talent but isn't doing anything, you know?
Exactly. What are some of your favorite web videos, movies of all time? Like if you think back.
So are you talking, like we're talking in like the Vimeo realm, are you saying? Or
Vimeo realm, I feel like there's a Vimeo realm and then movies aside. If you could like pick a couple in both camps, that'd be great.
Well, it feels like the cliche film student thing to say, but Koyaanisqatsi, and you can get the spelling, it's in my Skype name. That was a hugely influential film for me. Storytelling, it does have a story arc, but it's not very formal in what you would, there's no narrative in the sense of like scripted work. But what I loved about Koyaanisqatsi and why I think it really influences a lot of my work is the juxtaposition. I thought it was so incredible in one shot, how much emotion, how much story they could tell. And one of my favorite shots from that film is it's just this old worker in a factory who's just sitting there on the chair, and I don't even know if he's being filmed, but it's shot on an incredibly long lens. And it's just such a powerful film. You just see him sitting there, and it's just one of the many shots in the film, and it lasts for maybe 30 seconds. But he kind of looks bummed out. But it's like you see the how old he is, and the wrinkles on his face, and it just shows the entire environment in it, and it just tells a story. It's like, yeah, this man may have sat and worked in this factory his entire life, and it takes you on such an adventure in one shot, and that's what I really hope to do in my work. What excites me so much in filmmaking is getting to just tell so much story in one frame. I think you can pack so much information into one frame, and it's such a cool medium for that. But anyways, that's all to say. Koyaanisqatsi is very influential in my work. In the Vimeo, I'm going over. I wrote some Vimeo realm. This is called Life by Jonathan Brejo.
Life to me is like a breath of fresh air.
And obviously a classic, Rocket Wars by Solomon Lighthelm.
Ooh, Lighthelm. What an amazing talent. What is he doing these days? I haven't checked up on him for a while.
He did a big piece for S1 Airlines. He's still doing a lot of commercials, and I'm sure knowing Solomon, he's doing a lot of like amazing commercial work, and I'm sure knowing Solomon, he's probably working on another feature or something of great length. You know, he releases so much content in a year. It's very impressive, and I really appreciate what he's doing. So yeah, Rocket Wars to me, in that, well, why I like those films is they kind of push beyond the typical 2 minutes of a commercial piece, and they still hold a lot of impact, and they're just so aesthetically driven. And why I also appreciate this is called Life is it's just working with real life people and telling a very, very emotional but simple story in just a few environments. And often as a filmmaker, especially a Canadian filmmaker, because our budgets are so small, you're often stuck in that realm of having to film over the course of a day or two in very limited environments. And I think Jonathan in that film took very simple and common or what I'm trying to say, simple and very mundane environments and made them look incredibly beautiful and use them to tell a deeper story. So I like that. It kind of has that bit of the Koyaanisqatsi touch with a modern filmmaking handheld vibe. Nice. And Rocket Wars is just, it's a badass film. You can't go wrong filming people shooting rockets at each other, like but Solomon still took the story to another level. And the craft of that was incredible.
He's freaking amazing.
Yeah, he is.
He really pushed the boundaries with the HDSLR revolution, and his first couple of movies that really got people to open their eyes and say, wow, you can really do that. Well, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, no, thank you for the time, Martin.
Great answers, and we can't wait to see the next one that you can't talk about coming out.
Yeah. Oh man, I know I'm in the edit suite all next week, and I just the client has put a hold on the other films. We can't release them yet. I went and shot in Africa and was in with the Lion Whisperer and all this crazy stuff. And we shot those back in the summer and can't release them. But this final film is very, very gorgeous. So
nice. Make sure you send us a link.
Yes, will do.